Well, welcome everybody to this new version of the CSAE podcast called Best Minds in Associations. Today's topic it's all about trust, and we're just honored to have Diane Matt with us today from the Colorado Veterinary Medical Association. She is the Chief Executive Officer. Her organization has 2,400 members, and CVMA is the voice for doctors and veterinary medicine in Colorado. She came to the organization from the Women in Engineering Proactive Network, where she served for 12 years. That network of thought and change leaders who use research-based strategies to build and sustain equitable, inclusive cultures in engineering higher education. Diane also served as Executive Director for the Associated Landscape Contractors of Colorado, and also worked as the environmental affairs for the Denver Regional Transportation District. She studied geology at Indiana University. Don't meet a lot of people that do that. And the University of Calgary. And she was honored in 2016 by the Indiana University College of Arts and Sciences as a distinguished alumni. Congratulations for that. Diane, thanks so much for joining us today.
Bob, it's a pleasure, and I think this is going to be fun.
Great, I do too. They usually are fun. So trust. It's when I saw this topic, it reminded me of something. My dad shared a lot of things with me over the years, and I rolled my eyes over most of them. And now that he's passed quite a long time ago, so much of it comes back to me. The one thing he did say about trust was, he said, "Son, trust is an easy thing to gain and a very difficult thing to gain back if you lose it." And so I'm very interested to hear your perspectives on trust in the business industry, working with staff, in your life, whatever you want to share. So let me hit you, if I can, with the first question. Your career has been long and distinguished, so congratulations on that. I'm sure that you've worked with a lot of diverse staffs, with all kinds of issues that come with that role. How have you inspired your staff members to trust you as their leader?
Well, having the opportunity to do this podcast has given me the chance over the last little while to be thinking about my views on trust. And I'm going to almost answer your question here. It got me thinking about what my evolution has been in the way I think about trust. And I would say that in the beginning, I had sort of a transactional concept of trust. I trust you, you trust me, boom, boom. That's how it worked. I think a turning point probably was becoming a parent and really having right, so many things.
Oh, yeah.
Really having an opportunity to have a tiny little person that you were supposed to keep safe and nurture and, act in their best interest. You were supposed to exercise all those fiduciary responsibilities that we know about on behalf of this child. And so along the way, it's a kind of an aha moment that you're going to go, well, duh. This child is a different person than you are. And so you have to go, all right, what makes this person tick? And how does that work? And so later on, you go through your career. And I think one of the things that's been really interesting is all the leadership development opportunities that you have in this kind of work. And I've stumbled upon this book, Strengths-Based Leadership.
Okay, nice.
Which, of course, is, based on the Clifton strengths. And you really have to take those strengths to start with this. So my strengths, as it turns out, I've got this page. Well, there's a lot of dog-eared pages. My strengths, and I am sure this is probably similar for many association leaders, are achiever, communication, individualization, strategic, and then some combination of ideation and learner.
Okay.
So it's that individualization strength that I think has been really pivotal in knowing what it even means to build trust and taking a positive strengths based angle on that. So that's
Yeah,
a big
those.
fuzzy answer, but there
Well,
you
no,
go.
that's a great answer. And so, one of the questions I want to follow up with is, we talked about how do you get people to trust you, but conversely, how do you trust them? And so those attributes that you mentioned, and listen, the child thing is the perfect example. The responsibility of having children is, and they look at you and they trust you, right? It's just kind of unconditional trust. But I think conversely, when you think about how do you gain the trust of your team, they must see those attributes in you. And everybody has different attributes. Are there attributes that people have that, as a leader, give you an indicator that, maybe these people can't be trusted? I mean, other than, Diane, I'm gonna have the report to your desk on Friday by 5 o'clock, and then you don't have it until the following Friday. But do you see other things in people? Are there any attributes or characteristics of people that we all should kind of watch out for? Tough question, I know.
Well, yeah, so I'm going to stay at a high level here.
Okay, okay.
But what I will say is, I had the opportunity to be in a workshop that Jeff Arnold, also a CSAE member,
Yes.
conducted some time ago. And in that presentation or in that workshop, he put a trust model up on the screen. And so this trust model I like because if you Google interpersonal trust models, then and you click on images, you get about a bazillion of them,
Okay.
and they sometimes are more complicated than others. But this one just has three things. It says trust is built of sincerity, reliability, and competence.
Excellent.
And so I like that because over time, and sometimes over a short period of time, or sometimes over a longer period of time, right, with people, their wavelengths of reliability, vary greatly from individual to individual. Um, Sincerity, that sometimes people come across as sincere, and then you find out, oh, well, that was kind of ephemeral.
Okay.
But competence. So I think those things can be pretty easy to evaluate. I mean, you can assess reliability over time.
Sure.
Competence, you can learn about to some extent in interviews. Sincerity, you get to experience that.
Right.
I guess another thing I'll say is one time I was talking with somebody who was an expert in Myers-Briggs personality preference work, and we were talking about somebody I was learning to not trust.
Okay.
And her question to me was, are we talking about somebody who's a mature, complete individual? And I reflected on that question for a minute. I go, oh, nope.
Yeah.
Um,
What a
so
great way to put it. What a great way to put that. Yeah.
I think it's a great little question to sort of keep in your hip pocket for all kinds of situations, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Um, yeah, those are great examples. Um, so uh, many say that the key to developing an environment of trust is just critical in productivity and success and teamwork and things. I mean, and we're coming off a year. I mean, it's not over yet. I mean, we're still here, but you had alluded earlier that you've been at your home office, but we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel, right? I mean, I've had my first shot, and my second one's on April 2nd. I don't know, just kind of sad how unexciting my life is, that's one of the more exciting things that's happening in my life right now. But it's been a crazy year. And so with your organization, with your leadership, with your staff, your team, how have you done it? I mean, how has it worked? What are some things you could share with our audience today that would be helpful to them?
That's a great question. We have a team of 5.5 people,
Yeah.
including me. And I can remember last year on March the 13th, which I believe was a Friday,
It was. Yep.
um, we were having a conversation. So we all got together in one of the conference rooms and we said, okay, how's everybody feeling? And everybody said, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. And I think on that weekend, we had an education session where we had 65 people come in. And then we got to Monday, the 16th, and we got together in that conference room and we said, how's everybody doing? And everybody said, I don't want to be here anymore.
Right. Yep. Terrifying. It was a scary
Right.
time.
And so we said, okay. And we had already had some people who were working remotely. And we had some people who were working 4 10-hour days. So, and we had our systems set up so that technologically we could be remote.
Okay.
So we had all of that kind of stuff that was in place, although unexercised for the most part.
Sure.
So we could do it. So we did it. And after about 2 weeks, I was like, okay, this is working. People are being productive. I can rely on them. But I was lonely and I
Right.
was missing them. I've got a team where I'm not anymore the biggest extrovert, but one of the bigger extroverts. And so I need that kind of interaction. So the biggest change that we made very early was deciding to have Teams meetings for everybody daily at 8:30 in the morning. And the
Okay.
idea of these was to talk about what was going on with each individual person in their day-to-day life. How are they doing as humans?
Okay.
And so that really, I think that's a trust building exercise,
Sure.
and it's a compassion building exercise. So that's been, I think, an important change to make this kind of a work situation actually function for us.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting because what you said is what we used to do on a day-to-day basis, right? Hi,
Right.
Diane, how was your weekend? And how was the picnic? Or did you enjoy your day at the mountain or things like that? So, yeah,
Right.
that's pretty awesome. So, I had a situation the other day with one of our directors that he was in a hurry
Mm.
and I was trying to get some information from him. And we're doing this, and he looked at me over the Teams call and he said, "Hey, Bob, I trust you. Just go ahead and take care of it."
Mm.
And of course, my immediate response was, "Okay." And then I hung up the phone, and I felt confident I could handle it. And I appreciated that. But hearing you talk, I thought, what exactly do those three words mean anymore in our society? Diane, I trust you. What do you think that means to you, and what does it mean to people, and has it changed?
Sometimes it means I got to get off this phone call.
Right, right. Which I think was the case with Mike. I think that was the case with me.
Right. I got to be done with this, right? Well, um, I think in some cases, in the best case, it probably means you got this, which probably is something like, okay, you've thought about it, you've got the right approach here, you know what to do next, and my confidence that you're going to be able to do that well is high. And it may also mean the downside risk is not big.
Okay.
The downside risk is within my range of comfort. It's not going to get too mucked up
Right.
that I have to bail it out.
Yeah. Well, and it made me feel good. I mean, I hung up the phone and I thought, and I think you're right. I think, had I done something that with that project that he wouldn't have liked, he probably would have said, "Hey, look, I gave you the go ahead, the green light to go ahead and do it." So yeah, it was a vote of confidence to me, and it was
Yes.
a relationship builder, I
Sure. And I
think.
think it also indicates some intellectual alignment or some, a sense of direction that you're, within 5 or 8 degrees of each other of going forward.
Sure. Okay. So a little more specific, and I know you want to stay high level, and I get that piece, but has there ever been a situation with an employee or a member of your team where they lost your trust? And assuming they stayed on the team, how as a leader did you help them to work in a manner down a road that would help you regain their trust, if you will? Has that situation occurred to you?
So are you saying somebody lost trust in me, or are
No,
you
no,
saying
no,
I
vice
lost trust
versa.
in
Yeah,
somebody?
yeah. One of your
Yeah.
team members let you down, and you went home and you said, "Doggone it! I don't know that I quote unquote trust them," whether you use those words or not. And then did you help them figure out a path to regain it? Because I think as an employee, last thing you ever want to do is lose the trust of your leader. So has that situation, and have you ever mentored people, help them to learn a path to regain Diane's trust? That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm just kind of thinking about that. Some people are easier to trust than others.
Okay.
Have
Yeah.
you noticed that,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, and I sort of think that part of being able to trust somebody is my responsibility in terms of in terms of setting out expectations.
Great.
And
Great. Yeah.
because if I'm not clear about, where the guardrails are here, or if I don't even have a concept about how the guard, then it's going to be really hard for people to deal with that.
Sure.
So I'll t- I'll tell you a story that again is based on a child kind of thing, but
Sure.
I think it's a safe example. I won't have to talk about somebody that is still out there in my world. Um, One time when my kid was about, I don't know, 12 or so, um, there was a note that got slipped from under her bedroom door into the hallway. And it said something like, "You effing bees." And I'm like, oh, this is this
Right.
this is big.
Right. Yeah.
So we decided sort of on the spur of the moment to have a little fireside chat. And really, there's only 3 of us. So, I mean, this is not very hard. So we invited our daughter to the living room. And the boundary we set at this point is we took the piece of paper and we looked at her and we said, "This is not how we treat each other in this family." And so then we crumpled up the piece of paper and we threw it in the fire. And so, we got a little symbolism going there. We got a little bit of
Absolutely.
clarification going there. So I think that's all part of the same idea of if you put the stepping stones out there for people, then it's much easier for you to know when their feet are landing in the right place, and it's
Sure.
much easier for them to know. And then it's much easier for you to have a conversation that goes something like, "I know you laid out this path here, but what I see now that I'm in the middle of it and doing it is maybe we'd be smarter to take this little path over here." And that opens up a whole nother trust building conversation about what kind of expertise and what kind of strengths those other players can bring to the whole operation.
Great. Absolutely perfect example. I don't suppose she was a teenager, was she?
Um, oh yeah,
Yeah, right. Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on teenagers
and
and
and things
behaviors, but
and things they've taught you.
yeah, and thank God they grow out of it. I always tell people, just weather the storm, you'll get through it. And it's interesting that example reminded me, when my daughter was quite small, we were up at my in-laws' summer home in the Adirondacks, and I was teaching her how to water ski. And she was terrified, and the ski boat was ready to go, and I was in the water holding her, and I had her all set up just perfectly, and I could see the fear in this little girl's face. And I looked at her and I said, "Mary, do you trust me? You trust your dad?" And her little head was shaking, and she said, I do. And so I looked at the boat and I said, go. And thank God she got up and she took off on skis. And that was a great moment. But I was thinking, well, what would have happened if I forgot to tell her to let go of the rope if you fall, and what happens if they dragged her for 20 yards underwater and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, great examples. Well, listen, Diane, any final thoughts you want to share with our audience this morning?
I think I do want to share one. And this again is from, strengths-based leadership. I thought this was illuminating. It talked about followers' 4 basic needs. And the first one is trust. So they got to be able to trust you. So that means you better be behaving in a trustworthy manner. And you can Google that, and that's pretty clear. Compassion. Yes, you got to be compassionate. And I would add vulnerable to that. Stability. You got to keep a steady hand on the tiller. And then I think hope. So that those are the 4 that are here. And then the wonderful thing about this book then is it goes through what your strengths are and how to lead with your particular strengths.
Awesome.
And it uses each of those. How do you build trust as this kind of a person? How do you build trust for this other kind of a person? So yes, trust.
So who is the author of that book? I know you mentioned.
Oh, the author of this book is Tom Rath.
Okay. Awesome. Well, those are great pillars to wrap up on. Diane, thanks so much for spending the time with us today and sharing your insights on a lot of things, but also with a focus on trust. We greatly appreciate it. I want to remind everybody that this podcast and other podcasts can be found at the Colorado Society Association Executives website, which is csae.org. So they're right on the front landing page. You just simply can't miss it. And we will continue these podcasts, and we typically post 2 a month. So Diane, thanks again for joining us today. And thank you to all of our listeners. And we hope that you enjoyed the podcast and learned a little bit more about trust. This is Bob Golden signing off for CSAE.